Yes, quiz custodian ipsos custodes. Who watches the Watchmen? Or who guards the guards, whatever. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. And today we're checking out the first episode for HBO's The Watchmen series. Not entirely familiar with this property. I only recently watched the Watchmen film, oddly, because I'm a huge fan of Zack Snyder's work. As far back as Sucker Punch, which not a lot of people talk about. Outside of his, he's having a start in the zombie genre, but I love Sucker Punch. I think it's one of his most underrated films, and Watchmen being one of the ones at the top as well. So definitely excited to get into this series. Of course, that has nothing to do with this with the TV adaptation, but I do know that it's somewhat a follow up to the film slash comic. So it's sort of a sequel in some respects. I saw the last trailer really, and I like the trailer. It didn't give away too much, so I have no idea what's happening in this world except that I do know Jeremy Irons was cast as Ozymandias, right? I'm not sure who Regina King's character is, but I've not seen anything with her that I don't like. So her being attached to the project definitely adds a level of excitement for me there. So I'm going in a blank slate. I'm not too familiar with the comic run either, with the exception that Alan Moore just detests any adaptation of his work famously. So I'm not familiar with the comics per se. So for the most part, I'm going into this fresh, with some backstory from the films, although I do need to watch it again because there are a lot of nuggets and stuff that I would have missed on the first watch through. So I want to ensure that I either watch that or check out the graphic novel, the comics before as I go on through each episode, just to kind of familiarize myself with the world of the Watchmen and things that have taken place in this world. I suspect the film will the show will actually touch on a few of those things, but it's never a bad idea to kind of educate yourself on some of the events, not necessarily spoilers, but to kind of ensure that you're as engrossed in this world as much as possible. All right, so Watchmen episode 1, let's check it out. No Mob Justice. Yeah. So much for No Mob Justice. Wow.
All right, we're here. I told you, ain't no room. Just the boy there. Hey, God damn it, OB.
It's gonna be okay, baby, right?
At least take the kid. I mean,
Go
come
and
on.
Lydia, and they're gonna get you someplace safe.
Are you coming too?
We're gonna be right behind you.
Jesus. Stay down, kid. Alright, so some time has passed.
It is 9:35 p.m., September 8th, 2019, initiated traffic stop. How are you tonight, sir?
2019.
Good. Yeah, fine, thanks. How are you?
What you drinking there?
Oh, can I take a look at your face?
Oh,
What did you just say to me?
okay.
Hey, I'm
Vigilante?
sorry, officer. I was just kidding.
License and registration.
No, he's not wrong.
They're in the glove.
I would want to see your
Just gonna
face
reach
too.
over and open it on up, okay?
Why the mask though?
3-5, return the vehicle. I need weapons officer who's on the desk.
Panda, I'll patch you through.
Shit, no, wait, is there anyone else?
This is Panda. What's up?
Keep your eyes on him.
We good?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
God damn it. I knew it. Rorschach's mask. Alright, all their faces are covered, so I guess that's a thing. Maybe to protect their identity.
They bring my uniform up.
Next room over.
Guess wearing a mask has its benefits in this world. Yeah.
Running background checks on all the nurses and orderlies that saw his face.
Yep. We got
See?
Cavalry.
more than likely. You want me to call in Red and Night?
No. Let him sleep.
She gonna be pissed.
Why in Christ's name would they start this shit up again?
Egg whites are made of protein. When we whip them, we get bubbles. And it's the proteins that form the walls of those bubbles.
Mr. Manhattan.
If we don't have walls, it all comes tumbling down. Now, those walls are strong, but they won't stay that way if just even a little bit of yolk gets mixed in with the whites. So, that's why we gotta separate them. Ta-da!
Can we eat our cookies now?
So I'm wondering if the policeman that just got shot was the boy from the opening, right? And
Okay, Miss April,
perhaps
while
she
they're
was the
stuffing
baby
their
that he picked
faces,
up.
Maybe you can explain to him.
Did Redford Asians pay for it?
What?
Excuse me?
Your bakery. Did you pay for it with Redfordation?
Tommy.
Okay. What is he talking about?
Is he racist? He's not racist, but he's off to a good start.
That's how it usually begins, though.
God damn it.
Maybe it's a false slip.
What the hell? It just happens every day?
The clock is ticking. The New York Times is calling it the most important television event.
Alright, there's often a lot has obviously happened in this world that I need to catch up on. What were those things raining out of the sky? Future is bright. Ah, so she didn't quit the force, or did she? Some Knight Rider thing. So she quit, but she's still doing the vigilante thing. She's not in a police car.
and there is so little time. And that time is near.
So they're adopting Rorschach's principles for some racist cult.
Why didn't you call me?
Don't take your feet off my desk, please.
Cavalry involved shooting last night, and I don't get a little bighorn until 2 hours ago?
We were still working the scene. It was late.
I know why you didn't call me.
You gonna give me the speech now?
What speech?
About how I'm overreacting by calling Article 4, and I should calm down and take a breath before we're at war again.
There's a guy in my trunk. I knew you were gonna tell us to round up the likelies. I just gotta jump on things.
Got a head start.
Are you a member of, or do you associate with members of the white supremacist
This room's supposed to be some sort of lie detector.
No. Do you believe that trans-dimensional attacks are hoaxes staged by the U.S. government?
I don't know, maybe.
Well,
He knows.
you sure?
He's not going to talk sans motivation, but he was off the charts on the bias questions. Eyes dilated on all the Rorschachs.
Oh, based on the imagery that he saw, his reaction, his eyes betray even
Like I said.
if he's saying something else.
Bleach.
You should get any answers.
Cattle ranch.
Guess so.
Alright, come on, boys. Let's
The
go.
hell are they doing with all that?
Down, everybody down!
I hope they brought some heavy weapons of their own, and not just handguns. Get away.
They got a fucking plane.
Oh shit. They probably should have scouted this area before moving there. Where the hell are the others?
Fucker! Spit it out! Spit it out, motherfucker!
Cyanide?
Out! Fuck!
Stay with him. Higher. Higher. Are you okay?
Are you okay?
Oh, shit!
How do you knock that door off that easily?
All right, babe,
I'm
girl.
gonna get another bottle.
Rosie, Emma, I am officially convinced that one day another little girl will be listing your names.
I don't think this is gonna have a happy ending. Something's about to go down.
I don't know. But that
What
fucker in the
were
video
the
said that they
Dingdong's
had a
batteries?
mission, and it was gonna happen soon. Aren't you worried?
Oh, Angela. I'm worried as fuck.
Hey, what do you...
It's a hell of a name, isn't it? Senator Joe Keane was a
Just
real
told her that
deal,
you'd have
like
someone
our
drive you.
Sun dancer in chief.
He's gonna
30 years
die.
of Westburg, what have we got to show for it? More land we can't live on, more animals we can't kill, and a 6-month wait to get a gun for our own pride.
Considering how on edge everyone has been and he knows that the cavalry is about, he should have taken someone with him. Why go alone? Yeah, they're expecting him. Alright, episode 1 of the Watchmen, and I'm confused as hell. This world is obviously, and I mean, it's the same feeling that I got after watching the movie as well. This world is obviously, you know, a bit different, a bit more twisted than our actual world, and I mean, it ties into real world events, but then it has its own twist on things. So this is what happened with, I suspect, the Tulsa massacre, which I'm not completely familiar with. I had to just do some quick checks, but I always think it's best to do in-depth research when it comes to things like that, historical events, before, you know, commenting too much. I always ensure you know the history, you know the facts before you jump into that hole. But for the most part, it is an actual event that happened that's not really covered a whole lot in history books for obvious reasons, I suppose. But I would think it's important to never forget never forget, right? It's important to always revisit these things every now and then to ensure that we don't repeat history. So it's interesting that they chose to use that as, you know, a material for the series itself. So it's an uprising of what they call the cavalry, which I suspect is an offshoot of the KKK, right? The authorities decided to keep their, you know, the officers safe. It's best for the authorities to keep their identity a secret, always wear a mask, which they're not vigilantes, but for their own safety. The same reason that heroes wear masks, to protect themselves, to protect their families and friends and their loved ones from criminals. Now these criminals, the cavalry seems to have, I need to revisit you know, what Rorschach's kind of, I know at the end of the last film, I don't know if his journal was published, but I believe it was released or sent to some journalists or something to that effect. I'd have to check my details, but they are appearing to adopt Rorschach's, you know, some of his principles to some extent. I suspect from his journal, but Rorschach wasn't a racist, far from it. But I mean, with all things, even with current day and things that have happened in the past, think about something as simple as the Bible. People read it and they all have different interpretations of what it actually says, or what guidance it actually provides. So I imagine these guys maybe read his journal and they chose to pick something and interpret it in their own way and twist it and to kind of fit their own narrative. So they're not representative of Rorschach's mandate, but they believe they are. They believe they're emboldened by it somehow. So I think that is what is happening here, and Regina's character it would seem as though she's going to be the focal character of this series. She supposedly was a police officer and left the force, but she didn't really leave the force. She only did it because of some event that happened, where she was one of the officers that they almost killed, and they knew her identity, they knew her family, so it was best for her to leave the force. So to leave the force in secret, but not really leave the force, and kind of work in the background. So she's in some respects working as a vigilante, since she's on the surface not really a police officer, and she obviously doesn't hold back on doing the things that others may not want to do. But I'm trying to determine the scale of it, right? Because this appears to be a small town, but is this policy for officers to wear masks, is it extensive across the entire country, and all officers are mandated to do it, and their weapons are, they have to receive authorization to release their weapons for use? For those of you who are anime fans who may have watched Psycho-Pass, the Psycho-Pass anime, you've encountered something similar to this in that manga or anime. The only difference being in that world, they use the technology. They push the technology a bit further to kind of predetermine who the criminals will be. So if they believe you're going to do something, you're tested. I believe every day you have to do some sort of test, and if you're a psycho, if your psyche suggests that you're going to be doing something criminal, then you're arrested before you actually commit the crime. So it would be very interesting if they adopted something like that for a series. But the gun thing works very similar here, where they have to be under certain conditions before the weapon is actually released for use. And in the opening scene, it was a bit questionable because the guy did agree for him to search the trunk. And he did tell him, he didn't resist. But when the officer raided in, he gave the impression that he needed the gun because this person was resisting and refusing, which wasn't the case. But again, this is a gray world, a very gray world. And I imagine the movie was as well, and I imagine the comic was as well. So it kind of fits right in there. And neither of them were in the right. Of course, he shot the officer for no apparent reason, but do you know what the officer would have done with the gun if he was given permission to use it? So there are all these questions in terms of who's right and who's wrong. But yeah. In any case, I'm interested in the technology in this world, because there seems to be a lot of the pod, for example, that they were using to chase the plane after the criminals were attempting to escape. So the world seems to have changed after the events of the Watchmen film. So certain technology seems to be available that's not existent now. Then there's when she was driving her, which I thought was her daughter home, but I believe it's a son. His hair is just long. When she was driving him home after he slugged the kid, rightfully so. It started to rain, but instead of raindrops, or along with the raindrops, there were these creatures, these small aquatic creatures or something like that in the rain, and they weren't surprised by it at all. So it appears as though it's a naturally occurring event. And I do know in the film, the big baddie at the end was supposed to be some giant creature, which Zack Snyder chose to leave out. So I'm wondering if this is them just hinting at that. That should have happened then, but didn't. So it's all very interesting. It's a lot to take in. I'm gonna have to watch this episode again to see, kind of absorb everything that I may have missed. Of course, seeing Yahya Abdul-Mateen II appearing here is always a delight. That's her husband, and I know him from not just Black Manta, but from The Get Down, which is where I was first introduced to him, and I absolutely love this character there. He was phenomenal in the small role that he was in. He was phenomenal. For those of you who have not watched The Get Down, be sure to check it out. It's an unusual series on Netflix, but it's a fun watch. You will have a good time watching it. So I first met him there, and then he, of course, went on to be Black Manta, and I believe he's in some episodes of the Black Mirror as well. But very good actor. I'd love to see that he's actually getting work here as well. And Regina King, of course. I can't not listen to her voice and hear Huey from the Boondocks. I believe she voices Huey in that cartoon series. So absolutely love her. So far, I mean, the show hasn't given a whole lot away. We caught up with Ozymandias, but I have no idea what the hell is happening at his place, whether these people are real or he's imagining them, or I have no idea what's happening. So I'm excited to see more, excited to learn more about the world. I need to go and read and check out some of the comics to maybe familiarize myself with some of the history of the Watchmen and this world, because it's a lot to take in. But definitely looking forward to seeing more. All right, be sure to post down below, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are on this first episode. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next one.